talented. You're so talented. I love it. Oh, my goodness. As always, I send him something, and of course he shows up, right? Wow, good morning. So happy y'all are here this morning. I'm happy to be here this morning. I feel a little out of practice because I haven't done this for 2 weeks, so pray for me. Thank you, as I get through this. So last week, Reverend Vita spoke about 2 flawed characters in the Bible. Do y'all remember that? 2 flawed heroes, Abraham and Jacob. And this morning is no different, talking about Moses, because he's also a flawed hero. And the Bible's filled with biblical characters that are there to remind us, this is the part I love, that they're there to remind us that we can show up exactly as we are in all of our flaws and be used, right? We are the hands and feet. We're the very vessels. Isn't that beautiful? That's what it reminds us of. So what I'm really hoping is that you guys have enjoyed this series as much as Reverend Vita and I have enjoyed it. I thank you. I love that you say that. Y'all know that just means you'll get more Bible, right? If you encourage us, that's what that means, right? And I know that I'm very aware that the Bible can be intimidating because of its length, right? Because of its language, because of its topics. And something I said early in the series is that I know that it's also been used as a very harmful tool. And I became much more aware of that, the ways that it was used to even abuse people when I was in seminary. I became very aware of that. And I was in classes with people that had to just really look at the Bible from a different place, from a different light. And that's what I'm hoping we're doing today, is looking at it from a different light, looking at it from a historical context, a cultural context, and then looking at it metaphysically and looking at how can I see myself in that story? What does it say to me? And so this morning is no different. We're going to continue to do that. I also want to share with you guys somebody that I follow, and his name is Rob Bell. Has anybody heard of him? A couple of you have, yeah. And he wrote a book called Love Wins, Heaven, Hell, and the Fate of Every Person Who Ever Lived. He tends to have really lengthy titles. I'm not kidding, he really does. And he was a founding pastor of Mars Hill Bible Church in Granville, Michigan, which became one of the fastest growing churches in the U.S. So what to know about this book is that he questioned the traditional doctrine of eternal conscious torment, right? The idea that some people would be damned in hell, and that's just it. They have no choice in it. That's just it, right? And it led to a very widespread debate for those who believe that the Bible is a tool of condemnation, right? So after this book, he was actually named a heretic by those who believe the Bible teaches eternal damnation. So he came from this tradition and then really began studying the Bible and understanding its historical context, and it opened his mind and his heart to the message of the Bible. And he believes now that God is a loving God always to everyone, and that grace is universal. Isn't that beautiful? That's very similar to what we believe in unity, correct? Yes. You would not believe that? Yeah. So now I want to share with you what he says in his book, What is the Bible? Again, a long, very long title. How an ancient library of poems, letters, and stories can transform the way we think and feel about everything. Yes, that's the title. Yes. So he has a chapter in his book called Why Americans Often Miss the Major Themes of the Bible. All right, put your seatbelts on. He says, the Bible was written by Jewish people who belonged to a Jewish minority living under oppression of a succession of massive military superpowers who had conquered them. The Egyptians, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, and the Romans. Bell continues, these people had experienced defeat generation after generation after generation. They've been conquered by one empire after another for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they want it to end. They want to be free. They're tired of being oppressed. The Bible was told by the ones who were oppressed at the hands of powerful and dominant nations. And Americans generally miss that piece. Think about, if you know that piece, how differently your worldview will be. Would it not just completely change your worldview? It really does. It really does. So keep that in mind as we keep going. These empires dictated the geopolitical landscape of the Jewish diaspora. And this leads us to Moses. I promise you, I'm getting there. Moses was chosen by God to be the leader of the Israelites. He chose him to lead the people out of bondage, as the song so perfectly lets us know, and into freedom from the Egyptians. He was also the lawgiver of the Decalogue, or that's also known as the Ten Commandments, and many, 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 many more laws. If you read Leviticus, you'd know this, which I did. And I did. This was a hard one, y'all. I'm not lying. Anyway, like Abraham, he's a foundational biblical character who was also flawed, also imperfect. If you know Moses, you know that he was a murderer, right? He murdered someone because he saw them, which was a slave, a Hebrew slave, being beaten by an Egyptian, and he saw that as injustice, and so he murdered him. And yet, he also was faithful to God, even in his perceived flaws and weaknesses. He was. So like I said, I read so much. I read hundreds and hundreds. Any of you that would text me, I'd say, I'm reading Moses, because there's so much to read. And you can get so lost in all of it. And I was like, what is it that I really want to focus on? What is it that inspires me by this story? And that's what I want to share. What inspires me by this story is when God shows up to him in the burning bush. That relationship is what inspires me from that story, because what I believe it's in that showing up and in that presence of God that makes everything else possible. Wow. Does that make sense? He would not have been able to lead people out of bondage had his relationship with God had not been that. So that's what I want to focus on. And as always, I have an affirmation, and I'll explain more later, but in the meantime, I want you to say it. And that is, I am in the presence of absolute being. Presence of absolute being. I am in the presence of absolute being.
I am in the presence of absolute being.
And you're going to say it one more time, because I want you to leave this room knowing that and feeling it to the very core of you. I am in the presence of absolute being. And just breathe it in, right? And just be curious about, what does that mean for you to be in the presence of absolute being as you walk through your days, as you spend time with your friends, your family, as you watch the news? What does that mean to be in the presence of absolute being, right? Gives a sense of calm, of ease, of trust, power. Thank you for saying that. Power, absolutely, and trust. Okay, so first I want to give you 3 fun facts about Moses' story, because we need them. Second, I'm sure we do. Second, I want to talk about how God presents himself to Moses. And then I want to go back to Rob Bell, what he has to say about the Bible. And then I'm going to share again what Thomas said about Moses, because I feel like it was just so wise and so worthy of being repeated. So 3 fun facts about the Moses story. 1, contrary to popular belief, he did not write his story. You know that, right? Yeah, we're told he wrote his story. No. Or people believe who's the author? Moses. He's not Not to mention, it's very possible he's known as a character, as a legendary character. There's really no evidence that there was a Moses. Did y'all know that? I don't mean to burst your bubble. There's no evidence. It's a composite character, perhaps, right? Is that okay? Yeah. Is everyone okay with that? Or does that burst your bubble? Okay. When we talk about Jesus, I won't say that. That burst my bubble. Okay, so like Genesis, it's attributed to sources. I said the J and the E sources. Although it is much more difficult to distinguish between J and E sources in Exodus than it was in Genesis. Do with whatever you want with that. Second fun fact, Moses' entire story is told in 4 books, right? So Genesis is the one book that we've been covering so far. That's what we've been covering is the first. Moses is in the rest of them. So known as the Torah or the Pentateuch. Exodus, which I've already mentioned. So Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. 4 books. In Exodus, we have the birth, the burning bush, the 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, and the receiving of the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, at Mount Sinai. In Leviticus, God instructs him on the laws and sacrifices that the Israelites are being asked to follow. It's a very tedious book. If you decide to read it, just know that, very tedious. And then in Numbers, we see the Israelites' 40-year journey through the wilderness. It's when they complain, and they complain, and they complain, and they whine, and they whine. Why are we here? We don't have water. We don't have food. And they get the manna. That's what that is. And then the last book is Deuteronomy, and that's when we see Moses give his very last speech to the Israelites, and this is also when he dies. So, third fun fact, Moses does not take people to the promised land. Did you know that? Yeah, some of us didn't. I mean, I did. I did, but a long time ago I didn't. Yeah. So who takes the people? It's Joshua, one of Moses' assistants, known to be from the tribe of Ephraim. He was a skilled military leader. And he takes the people out to the promised land. This is after the Battle of Jericho. You remember that? The battle where they go round and round the Battle of Jericho. If you know Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I've been to the mountaintop, which just thinking about it's going to make me cry, when he says, I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. And that's very much a reference to Moses, and that's very much Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, right? Fun facts, right? Y'all enjoyed them? Fun? Okay, let's move on. So I want to focus on Exodus, which is the book that follows Genesis. It's the second book in the Hebrew Scriptures, and it derives from the Greek word Exodus, meaning departure, exit, going out. Makes sense, right? Exit out of Egypt. And there are 2 major themes in this book. Do y'all know what the 2 major themes are? All right, I'll let you know. The 2 major themes, I'll tell you. It's my job. It's what I get paid for. It's why you pay. Oh my God, Heather. It's my job. All right, well, let me continue with my job. Oh, you're hysterical. Okay, let me continue. So the 2, I've lost it completely. The 2 major themes are the revelation of Yahweh, which is I want to focus on, and the Israelites' liberation. Those are the 2 major themes, okay? You got it? Okay, just a little bit give you the story. After Moses kills an Egyptian man for beating a Hebrew slave, he flees to Midian to tend to his father-in-law's sheep. He marries Jethro's daughter, Zipporah. Thank you. Zipporah. Sorry, I know you pay me for this. That's okay though, right? Just one mistake. In the story, she's going to dock my pay. All right, let me get back to this. I'm sorry. In the story, Heather, in the story, he leads his flock beyond the wilderness, and he goes to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appears to him in a flame fire out of a bush. This is also known the burning bush, right? The most celebrated part of this passage is the exchange between Moses and God, and this is Exodus 3:13 through 14. When Moses asks for God's name, he is told, you know what he's told, I am who I am, right? In Hebrew, and I'm going to slaughter this, Iya Asher Iye. Sorry. And the Greek translation, it is Imi Ho On. I am the one who is. So generations upon generations of theologians argue that the God revealed to Moses was identical to absolute being. Hence our affirmation, I am in the presence of absolute being. While the Hebrew language of this time did not have a concept of being, this does not invalidate the theological correlation of the Bible with Greek philosophy. In the Hebrew, Yahweh is understood as a form of the verb to be. It can be translated as he causes to be. Isn't that interesting? So why does this matter? For me, it matters because it points to our understanding of God, right? Doesn't it? It points to that understanding. And in unity, as you know, when we see God is everywhere present and is absolute being, it's this idea of being able to step into that. It's this idea that there's no limitation, if that makes sense, right? There's no limitation. And there's even, there's no limitation of, oh, well, this is good or this is bad or this, whatever. There's none of that judgment. It's there. It's just absolute being, absolute energy, absolute love. That it's just a completely different. And the other piece of that is both of these ideas of the way he looks at it just completely speaks to me. The idea of God as the absolute presence, I can be that presence. I can drop the bondage, whatever it is that's holding me back, right? I can choose to live in the freedom. And not only that, I can live in awareness that freedom is my birthright, my divine understanding, as it is everyone else, right? But then the other definition of that also speaks to me is that he causes to be is the idea of we're reminded that God is law. He causes to be. God is first cause, right? When I say God is first cause, it means that I first go to divine mind, right? I trust that there's a law and it's always going to work no matter what. Does that make sense? I have a friend, my sister and I do, who when we talk, she always says, primero Dios. I love that. Something goes on in her life and she's struggling and she says, primero Dios, meaning first cause, God first. Let me first go to God and let me know that law is always going to work no matter what. Amen. Is that not beautiful? Yes. So that's why I so much wanted to just talk about that piece when you look at two things. And the other thing that I love is when you look at the Bible, it becomes so clear. It's not only the authorship, right? But then think about the translations. We have two different translations here that gives us two different concepts that we can actually use in our lives. Two concepts of God. So what else do I want to say? Oh, here it is. Moses was an octogenarian. Did y'all know that? He was 80 years old when he's called at the burning bush. He's 80 years old. And he stuttered. Did you know that? He stuttered. He did not think he could carry out God's request to lead his people, the Israelites, out of bondage. God tells him, I will be with you. I will provide reassurances, signs, and I will appoint your brother. That's what he says to him. Like Moses, we're all called. We would not be here this morning if not. We would not be called to this sacred ministry that calls us to live a life of expansion. And so what that also makes me think about is think about any place in your mind, in your heart that's hardened. Any place that's hardened. And for some of us, there's always a place, right? If not, we wouldn't still be here. That's the point. And make your practice being, I'm going to sit in this absolute presence of being, knowing that it's perfect, and it's my life. Take that practice to when the heart feels like it's closing or the mind feels like it's closing. And the other part is ask for divine guidance, right? Know that it will come. Know that you will have signs and reassurances. And also, like of Moses, you'll have assistance. You're here with us in community. We're here to remind one another this is a safe, soft place to land. It's a place where we celebrate one another. It's a place where we sit with one another's sufferings. That's the idea, I believe, of the absolute being. Charles Fillmore says about Moses that the name means water saved or drawn out of water. He says Moses symbolizes this progressive or drawing out process. Think about it, which works from the within outward, right? We have to know within our strength, our foundation, before we can liberate ourselves and help others. We're here to evolve, change, transform. That's the point. So going back to Rob Bell, who I mentioned earlier, he says, one of the central themes of the Bible is that it is a critique, fearless, pointed, courageous, subversive, poetic, sometimes sarcastic, other times angry, heartfelt, razor-sharp, critique of people, nations, systems, and empires endlessly accumulating more at the expense of everybody that they are stepping on along the way. That's the Bible. That's powerful, right? That's powerful. The power of the Bible for people like us living in times like these is that it shows us what it looks like to resist who needs to be resisted and critique what needs to be critiqued, while holding on to the conviction that there is a sacred mystery at the heart of being human. Amen. Put your hands on your hearts, and I'm going to say that. There is a sacred mystery at the heart of being human. And we are with one another in that knowing. In the world, there's always a temptation to become cynical, hardened, bitter, and wary. And yet we can follow the path that Moses exemplifies. He saw injustice, abuse, and exploitation. What did he do? He took his octogenarian body, he accepted his stutter, and despite his doubts, he let God use him as an activity of good. I am in the presence of absolute being. I am in the presence of absolute being. And so like Moses, let us stand up when we see injustice. Let us carry hope for one another. Let us love our neighbors because everyone has sacred worth. We tend to our relationship with the divine and become aware of how it opens our minds and our hearts. And I can't help myself, but I just feel I must repeat what Thomas Kinney, my spouse, offered about Moses. It's just so worth repeating. He said, the Egypt of the Hebrew Bible isn't a place on a map. It's that cramped, dark basement in my own mind. It's that place I go when I feel like a victim, when I'm afraid there isn't enough to go around, or when I start seeing people who are different from me as a threat. The Exodus is our collective wake-up call, that moment we realize we were born to be free. But I'm learning that you can't truly leave your own Egypt until you decide no one else belongs there either. This is our ethical memory. It's the spiritual practice of reaching back into your own history, remembering when you were the outsider, when you were the one who was afraid, or when you felt the weight of an unfair system. The Bible tells us to love the stranger because metaphysically we were all once strangers in Egypt. We are all strangers in Egypt. It's the universe's way of saying, don't you dare forget what it felt like to be the outcast. If you've ever felt judged or rejected, I think that pain wasn't meant to make you feel bitter. It was meant to be the fuel for your compassion today. Wow. We often treat love your neighbor like a nice suggestion. It's not. In the metaphysical sense, love is a law. It is as real as gravity. When you see a stranger, whether it's a protester in the street, an officer in a uniform, you are looking into a mirror. Leviticus 19 tells us to love the stranger because in the mind of God there is no such thing as a stranger. There is only one. If I find myself dehumanizing someone, whether I'm doing it in person, at the TV, or while scrolling through my feed, I have to stop and realize I'm actually hurting my own spiritual health. I'm feeding the line that we are separate, and that lie is poison. I know. Oh. And he's not here this morning. But I told him I was going to read it because it's so worthy of being read again. It's so worthy of being a practice, right? And I will. It is on our app. Yeah. Yes, it is. And come see me again. Come see me at the end so I can share it with you. It is on our app. So each of us is the presence. No, this is it. Each of us is the presence and is in the presence of absolute being. Each of us is the presence and is in the presence of absolute being. Let that be our practice. Thank you all.